Have you ever looked at what you had to offer, your time, your resources, your energy, and felt like it just wasn't enough? In 1932, during the height of the Great Depression, shame was a heavy coat that many men wore. But in the small town of Oak Haven, one Sunday changed everything. It wasn't because the economy turned around overnight. It was because of 3 eggs, a few biscuits, and a miracle of perspective. Meet Thomas and Elara Vance. The local mill had cut shifts again, and the silence of the saws was louder than the noise ever had been. Thomas had just returned from the city with dusty boots and empty pockets. He sat on the porch, his head in his hands, the weight of the world on his shoulders. He looked at Elara, his voice barely a whisper. It's not enough, Ellie. Everyone brings their best for the church potluck. I can't walk in there with empty hands and 3 eggs. But Elara, she possessed that quiet 1930s faith, the kind that sewed dresses out of feed sacks and found hope in a dry field. She placed a hand on his shoulder, her touch firm and reassuring. Thomas, she said softly, we don't go to God's house to show off our bounty. We go to offer our hearts. Sunday morning arrived, the air crisp with an autumn chill. As they walked towards the small white church at the end of the dirt road, Thomas carried their small basket, trying to hide it behind his back. He was certain he'd see the communion table groaning with hams, pies, and fancy cakes from families who were still doing all right. As they stepped inside, the church was filled with sunlight streaming through the windows. But the table, it was sparse, almost empty. There were no hams, no elaborate desserts, just a stark, quiet emptiness that mirrored how he felt inside. Then Pastor Miller stood up. His face was kind, weathered by years of shepherding his flock through good times and bad. He didn't preach on abundance that day. He didn't lecture on prosperity. Instead, he opened his worn leather Bible to the familiar story of the boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish. As he finished the passage, he looked out at the congregation, his gaze warm and understanding. I look at this table, he began, his voice steady, and I don't see poverty. I see an opportunity. I see an offering waiting to be made. His eyes found Thomas. Thomas, bring what you have. Every eye in the room turned to him. Thomas felt his face flush hot with shame. He wanted to disappear, but Elara gave him a gentle nudge. He walked forward, his steps heavy, and placed the small basket of biscuits on the vast, empty table. The silence was deafening, but then something shifted. The widow, Mrs. Gable, slowly rose from her pew. She walked to the table and placed a simple bowl of boiled potatoes next to the biscuits. A moment later, another family came forward with a jar of pickles. Then another with a single loaf of sourdough bread. One by one, the pride in the room broke. Families who had been hiding their meager food because they were ashamed began to come forward. A bowl of beans, a few apples, a small jar of preserves. The table, once a symbol of lack, was now a tapestry of shared vulnerability, as they all gathered around to eat. Thomas broke a biscuit and shared it with the man next to him. Mrs. Gable offered her potatoes to a young family. And soon the quiet, anxious room was filled with conversation and laughter, a sound richer and more joyful than anything from the so-called roaring 20s. Thomas looked around at the faces. Glowing in the warm light, he realized something profound. No one was looking at his empty pockets or judging his small contribution. They were looking him in the eye, simply grateful he was there, grateful to be together. What he brought wasn't just enough. It was more than enough. It was part of a miracle. We so often think that God needs our strength, our wealth, our impressive successes. But history and scripture remind us that God specializes in small. He works through the things we overlook. Just like the boy with the loaves and fish, and just like Thomas in Oak Haven, your little becomes significant when it's placed in the right hands. Maybe you feel like you're in a winter season right now, that what you have to offer is too small to matter. I want to encourage you today. Don't hide your basket. Your offering given with a sincere heart is exactly what's needed. If this story encouraged you, please hit that like button. It truly helps us share this message of hope with others who might need to hear it. And let me know in the comments, what is one small thing you are grateful for today? Even if it's just 3 eggs. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.